starts to sound really repetitive and boring, but if you consider the last 4 years have been won by two riders, right? Tadej Pogačar and Remco Evenepoel have won both the race twice. Going off what we saw, if you would have asked me after Amstel Gold Race, I would say, it's 50-50. For me, it's not 50-50. It's Tadej Pogačar all the way. The only way, in my opinion, he can lose this race is if there's circumstances, crashes, which we don't hope, technical problems, punctures, or if he makes mistakes.
Hi, I'm Spencer Martin, along with Johan Bruyneel, and this is Outcomes. Outcomes is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing in this podcast should be considered financial advice. Please gamble responsibly, and if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, seek help from a professional resource. Hosts and guests may have financial interest in the bets discussed. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Hey everybody, welcome back to Outcomes. I'm Spencer Martin. I'm here with Johan Bruyneel. We are predicting Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the final monument of the spring season. 252 kilometers long with a ton of vertical climbing, vertical meters gained, like 4,300 meters. If you're American, that's something like 12,000 feet. It's a lot of feet. I can't do the math off the top of my head, but it's a lot. I will read the favorites off Unibet in Europe, and we will get Johan's take on how this race is going to play out and who's going to win. Tadej Pogačar is the massive favorite. Man, I just can't get over these lines. It's every week. Minus 200. Remco Evenepoel plus 350. Ben Healy plus 2,000. Tom Pidcock plus 2,000. Matheus Schelmoza plus 2,000. Plus 2,200, the winner at Amstel Gold. Thibaut Nace plus 3,300. Romain Gregoire plus 5,000. Kevin Vauclin plus 6,600. Tej Benoot plus 8,000. Santiago Buitrago plus 8,000. Giulio Ciccone, who must be coming straight from the Tour of the Alps, plus 8,000. It keeps going. We don't need to read it. Probably the winner will come from one of those. Johan, who's going to win this thing and how are they going to win it?
Yeah, Spencer, it starts to sound really repetitive and boring, but if you consider the last 4 years have been won by two riders, right? Tadej Pogačar and Remco Evenepoel have won both the race twice. Going off what we saw, if you would have asked me after Amstel Gold Race, I would say, it's 50-50. For me, it's not 50-50. It's Tadej Pogačar all the way. The only way, in my opinion, he can lose this race is if there's circumstances, crashes, which we don't hope, technical problems, punctures, or if he makes mistakes, which is, in my opinion, what's the biggest chance for others to win. If Pogačar feels that he's really strong, he goes from far out and he runs out of energy. Also not likely to happen, but I think that's the biggest thing that the other riders can hope for. So Tadej Pogačar minus 200 is my favorite to win. It's going to be good weather, between 15 and 18 degrees, almost no wind, sunny. So it's going to be really, the guy who has the strongest legs. We've seen in Flèche Wallonne that there was a big difference between Tadej and the rest. He does tend to perform really well in bad weather, where some guys sometimes struggle. So I don't think that's really a realistic image of the difference between the guys. But yeah, I think it's a very predictable race. It's the course is always the same, or at least the final is always the same. So everyone's going to be waiting until Côte de la Redoute, where usually the big first selection is made. I think Pogačar is going to go there. I can't see Remco still hanging on. But then on the last climb, La Rochefoucauld, which is a hard climb also and a long climb, I think Pogačar is going to take off there. And in the case Remco would be able to stay with him, man against man, I still think Pogačar is faster in the sprint than Remco. So Pogačar, number one favorite.
Yeah, it sounds crazy at the odds. Minus 200. It's like starting to stretch our religious adherence to Tadej Pogačar's greatness. But you lay out a pretty good case, and I don't think we've talked about this on the record since Amstel Gold. I think you and George were right that the fatigue of Roubaix is so intense that it leaves you so drained. Like, I actually don't quite know what he was thinking when he made that attack at Amstel Gold. He just wasn't quite at his best. We saw on Wednesday, he's now at his best. Like, he's riding incredibly well. The cold probably helped him, but it was super impressive, almost chillingly good, that performance. And then the thing about Liège is it's so hard. It's not like Amstel, which is more interesting of a race probably because it's so much faster and rolling and the climbs aren't as difficult. Flanders is a little bit, it's hard, but it's a little bit more open. Roubaix is very open because it's flat. Liège is almost like a laboratory. Like, it is, if you're not the strongest rider at this race, it's very, very hard to win it. And I'll just read the last 5 winners. It's Tadej Pogačar last year, defending champion. Remco Evenepoel the year before, because Pogačar broke his wrist and wasn't able to contest it. 2022, Pogačar wasn't there, so Remco Evenepoel wins with another solo. Those are 3 solo attacks. 2021, Pogačar wins out of a sprint of 4, if you could believe that used to happen. And then 2020, Primož Roglič wins it, and maybe the most exciting modern edition. That was totally bananas in the finish, in the final. But technically, like, the strongest rider tends to win this race. Tadej Pogačar is probably the strongest rider. But because you've picked him, and because of the odds, Remco Evenepoel plus 350. This guy has won this race twice. It's not like an out of left field pick. It's almost priced like a wild card, though. I'm going to go Evenepoel just because of the math on this, because I think it's not quite 50-50, but I don't think his chances of winning are 0. As we saw at Amstel, he's a pretty good rider. He's pretty strong. Maybe one of the only riders strong enough to challenge Pogačar. I'm going to go Remco Evenepoel plus 350.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Spencer. You can't rule out Remco. We logically would think that he started, this is only his 3rd race of the season. He was 6 months out because of his terrible accident in Belgium. So one would think that his form would be increasing still. Of the 3 races that he has done, or that tomorrow will be his 3rd race, I think Liège is suited the best for him because of the terrain, and of course because he won it twice. So on top of that, in Belgium, all the fans will be in favor of him. It will be a big day for him. I have to say, he also has a pretty strong team around him for these races. We have been critical of Soudal Quickstep in the cobbled classics, where they were used to be the dominating team. It's clear there's been a shift there, and that they've built a team around Evenepoel. And I could see in Flèche Wallonne that the team was really around him and very present. So on Sunday, that's not going to be any different. I think at this price, plus 350, a rider like Evenepoel, I think it's definitely worth picking him.
Yeah, it's almost a wild card price. It's crazy for a guy that good. To argue against my own position, the climbs, like, his advantage over Pogačar is flat because he's so aero. Probably not as good of a climber. There's more climbing at this race. That would be the negative case on him, but just because of the numbers on this.
But you know what? The climbs in Liège are different, Spencer. The climbs in Amstel are shorter but steeper. Mur de Huy is obviously super steep. The climbs in Liège, except La Redoute, but it's still not as steep as Mur de Huy. So the climbs in Liège suit Remco better than any of those other 2 races. So also we've seen now that the distance doesn't seem to be a problem. He's fit. His endurance is really good. So he can go over the 250 kilometers, not a problem. In Remco's favor, I think also if it's not going to be cold and rainy, it's a plus compared to Flèche Wallonne, because he also openly said that made a mistake in Flèche Wallonne to take off his raincoat or his rain jersey too early, and he was cold. Anyway, everybody was cold, but I think Pogačar is able to deal better with the cold and the rain than Remco. So obviously that's out of the question for Sunday. So that's a plus for Remco.
Yeah, he won't be cold on Sunday, which is good for him. But let's take a quick ad break, and then you can tell us where this move's going to go, whether it's Remco, whether it's Pogačar, and then we'll get into our wild cards after that. So we'll be right back in a minute. Everybody, this episode is brought to you by Troscriptions. Here's a question to consider. What do you need right now on your path to health optimization? For me, sometimes that's just focus. Other times it's better sleep. And sometimes I just want to feel sharp without needing another coffee. That's why I've been using Troscriptions, a company that's completely rethinking how we approach supplements. They've developed pharmaceutical grade, physician designed formulas that are delivered in a really innovative way, something called a buccal troche. That's a small dissolvable lozenge that sits between your cheek and gum. It hits fast, 15 to 30 minutes, because it bypasses your digestive system and delivers ingredients right into your bloodstream. Whether you're looking for more energy, better sleep, or stress relief, they've got a stack for you. Everything is made in the USA and backed by science. So take advantage of this completely new way to optimize your health by heading to troscriptions.com/themove or entering the move at checkout for 10% off your first order. That's Troscriptions, TROSCRIPTIONS.com/themove for 10% off your first order. One more time, Troscriptions.com/themove for 10% off. Hey everybody, this episode is brought to you by Hims. What do riders like Tadej Pogačar, Remco Evenepoel, Mathieu van der Poel, and Wout van Aert all have in common? Well, other than putting out more watts than we do, it's their amazing hair. Unfortunately, we can't all be so lucky. So if you're starting to notice your hair thinning when you look in the mirror, you're not alone. Life just gets busier and busier, and it can feel like there's not enough time in the day to do something about it. So if this is how you feel, try Hims Hair Loss Solutions. They can allow you to avoid jumping through a bunch of frustrating hoops and get access to treatment without ever leaving your own home, which is how I like to get treatment. Don't make me go to the doctor, please. Hims provides you with convenient access to a range of hair loss treatments that work all from the comfort of your own couch. They make treating hair loss simple with doctor-trusted options and clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil that can regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. You can choose from personalized chewables, sprays, serum treatments to find out what works best for you. The process is simple and 100% online, so there's no uncomfortable doctor visits. All you have to do is answer a few questions, and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you, if they prescribe it, and your treatment is sent directly to you, free with no shipping charge. No insurance is needed, and the one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, and they can help you get your confidence back with visibly thicker and fuller hair. Do not wait any longer. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/themove. That's Hims, HIMS.com/themove for your personalized hair loss treatment options. Once again, hims.com/themove. Results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. All right, back to the episode. All right, Johan, where do you think this winning move is going to go? I think the last few years it's gone on La Redoute, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes on the climb, sometimes over the top of the climb, but really that's where stuff starts to go down in the last few years.
Yeah, I think the same. I think it's the same. You know, it's the hardest climb in the final, and there's a big, usually there's a big fight for position because it gets really narrow to the little town just before the Côte de la Redoute. And then it's quite long, you know, it keeps going up harder and harder. It's straight. I think Pogačar will go there. Remco maybe get distance a bit, but I think he still can come back after La Redoute because there's good terrain for him. He's not going to be far behind if he gets behind there. But I think that's where Pogačar will do a first big attack. I mean, listen, we don't know nowadays. You know, it's possible they go already earlier on the Côte de Stockeux, for example, which is way earlier and steep. But logically, it should be on La Redoute, the first big attack, and then eventually the final decision, if Pogačar doesn't get away by himself, would be on La Rochefoucauld, the last considerable climb. With this new final now in the last few years, of course, there's still quite a bit of terrain after the La Rochefoucauld. But normally, if you're not able to follow there, you're done. It's difficult to come back, and you can come back, but it's difficult to win if you come back.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there's any? This was changed fairly recently, right? Like, do you remember that old finish? And it was at like an Ons, where they'd like go uphill. And so the last, it's like 6 or 7 years I've been on this course. Do you think there's any chance that an attack goes on La Redoute and it gets pulled back before the finish, or you think these guys are so strong that's not going to happen?
Well, if it gets pulled back, it's going to be. I mean, there's not that. First of all, there's not that many riders who can attack on La Redoute. It's, in my opinion, it's Tadej and Remco. The others will have to try to follow, right? So if it gets pulled back, it's going to be pulled back by 1 or 2 riders. Let's say if Pogačar attacks and Remco and let's say Ben Healy are together, they might, they're not going to be that far behind. There might be a chance. And then also depends if Pogačar attacks, will he go full gas till the finish, or will he try to dosify his efforts and even allow them to come back? The attack could be a decisive one. It could also be the first one to really wear out your opponents. I think it's, if Pogačar is 100% and he goes on La Redoute, probably game over.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about his team in the pre-record. It's oddly not the strongest team they could bring here. They probably, some of the riders that would most rival Evenepoel and Pogačar are on Pogačar's team and are not at this race, like Juan Ayuso, Joao Almeida, Adam Yates. I guess those guys are off preparing for the Giro, but his team's still pretty strong. And I assume he'll want to stay with it for as long as possible, which would support your theory of let's say, quote unquote, waiting until La Redoute to attack. I probably don't see him going before that, just because the team is so good and I want to use it up as much as possible before he goes. I mean, what you had this comment on I think it was the move on Wednesday that I'm quite curious about asking you about, is you think if Pogačar raced more conservatively, he would win more. Like, what's the conservative option at this race? Like, is it not going on La Redoute? Or is that too risky if you don't do
It's at least waiting until La Redoute. So, now we don't know when they're going to go, right? But I think if you look at the composition of the team, right? Let's have a look at UAE. So it's Pogačar, Domen Novak, Brandon McNulty, Felix Groschartner, Langen, Sivakov, and Vermeersch. So Novak, Langen, and Vermeersch are the guys that need to keep it under control. These 3 guys need to make sure that the breakaway doesn't get too far ahead. Because what's clear is, in this race with a guy like Pogačar at the start, they cannot expect any help from no team. So if there's a breakaway, and there will be, it's all eyes on them. And everybody's riding kind of, negatively. And when negatively, I would say, when you're so dominant, right? There become in the peloton, there's a certain trend of, let's not race to win, but we're gonna race to make him lose. It starts to be like this when you're so dominant. So all eyes are on him and on the team. They will get no help. And so there's 8 or 10 riders. If you look at the way they have picked the team, it's clear that these 3 riders, Novak and Langen and Vermeersch, this is not their favorite terrain, but they're here for a reason. These 3 guys will need to make sure that until at least the first 200K to 180K, that's their job. And the breakaway will never get more than 3-4 minutes. And then because of, the dynamics and the inertia of the race, automatically the gap will get smaller, from La Redoute on. There's a bunch of other climbs. So yeah, no, I think it's going to be classic Liège-Bastogne-Liège, UAE controlling, one big favorite, and everybody else just looking and trying to, with Evenepoel and Ben Healy and Pidcock and Skelmose maybe, hope that they can follow or limit the damages, or even some riders of these names I've said, they even start with the idea, okay, I'm not racing to win, I'm just racing for the podium.
Yeah. Yes. I think you're exactly right. And on that note, let's get our picks for the podium and our wild cards for the win after our last ad break, which is right now. Hey, everybody. This episode is brought to you by Caldera Lab. Let's be honest, cycling is not great for your skin, especially during the spring classic season with the road spray and the cold weather. Whether you're a top pro looking to stand out on the podium or just a weekend warrior, Caldera Lab is here for you. Their high-performance skincare is designed specifically for men. It's simple, effective, and backed by science. And in a consumer study, nearly every user said their skin looked smoother and healthier after using it, with improved hydration and texture, and almost all reporting a more youthful appearance. They have a wide variety of skincare products that deliver these results. But a few of my favorites are, first, the clean slate. It comes in a glass bottle, like all Caldera Lab products, because they help you reduce your plastic footprint and also make you feel like a fancy lord in a manner. And it is a morning and night cleaning essential for me. It gently exfoliates skin without drying it out, and also is great for washing all the grime off your face after a long day in the saddle. They also have the base layer, their nutrient-rich moisturizer infused with plant stem cells and snow mushroom extract. Not only is it great for your face, could be good for your legs after you shave them. If you shave your legs a lot, you need to moisturize. Why not try the base layer? And the eye serum, which helps reduce the appearance of tired eyes, dark circles, and puffiness that I just described myself. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll know what I mean. So when I have to wake up early for all these races, like the Tour of the Alps, the Spring Classics, the Giro, which is coming up, I need the eye serum to help make sure I don't look like a ghoul when I leave the house. So remember, skincare doesn't have to be complicated, but it should be good. Upgrade your routine with Caldera Lab and see the difference for yourself. All you have to do is go to calderalab.com/themove and use code THEMOVE at checkout for 15% off your first order. That is calderalab.com/themove and use code THEMOVE at checkout for 15% off your first order. All right, back to the show. So Johan, let's assume something weird happens. And this happens. I mean, as we saw at Amstel Gold, Tadej Pogačar doesn't win, Remco Evenepoel doesn't win. Who's the Mateusz Skelmoza of this week, if that happens?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I fear for Skelmoza that he's not going to be fully recovered from his hard crash on Flesh Wallon. I mean, it's already a success that he's starting. There's nothing broken. I've seen that he's reconned the final of the race. But still, a crash like that, it does have an impact. 3 days later, you're not fully recovered from this. I'm just going to go off what I've seen in the last few races and also the track record. I'm going to choose Tom Pidcock as my wild card. He's plus 2,000. He was second in this race already. He was third in Flesh Wallon. He disappointed a bit in Amstel Gold Race, but then afterwards I found out that he did the last 10 kilometers on a half flat tire. So he's in good shape. And we know definitely that Pidcock's form is in crescendo now, that it's improving. So he's a winner. And he can win in the sprint also. So there could be a scenario where Pogačar is not as strong as we expect, and then Pidcock could come back and win in the sprint. So he's my wild card.
Yeah, it's not a terrible pick because he can sprint. Like that's like Ben Healy. We just skipped right over him. He's third at plus 2,000. The problem with Ben Healy is he's not going to be able to out sprint them. So what does he do? Like, is he really going to get away from them? And the Ben Healy's problem is he's always the bait. Like he's the one who goes, and then someone like Skelmoza benefits from it. So I wouldn't pick Ben Healy. I think he'll be up there. I think he'll be active. I don't think he'll win. I'm quite curious. Yeah, Pidcock, it's a big moment in his career because the problem with Pidcock is he's at risk of being a really, really good rider who can't beat the top guys like Evenepoel, Van der Poel, Pogačar. And like this is a big race for him. It's a big classic season for him. If he wants to break through it. I mean, this is who beat Tom Pidcock on Wednesday. This is my wild card. I can't believe he's priced here. He probably won't win, but Kevin Vauquelin plus 6,600. And then he's plus 11. No, sorry. He's 800 for the podium.
Yeah.
So that's my wild card, but he can
listen. Obviously, to see his performance on Wednesday was quite impressive. He was by far the strongest of everybody else. The second time he finishes second in Flèche Wallonne. The only question mark I have is how does he perform above 200 kilometers? I haven't seen much yet, but listen, the guy's big talent, young, very complete rider. Can time trial, can climb. It's gonna happen at some point. He's still improving, and he's riding for a contract. Maybe he has signed already. Probably he does. I mean, right now, if I would be Kevin Vauquelin or his agent, I wouldn't be worried about getting a contract. They're in line for him. But a huge performance in Liège-Bastogne-Liège would obviously add to his arguments to negotiate a big contract. I like it, especially for that price plus 6,600. Something needs to happen for him to win, right? But with the other guys, but he'll be up there. He's in great shape, and he definitely has the qualities for this terrain.
I mean, the obvious question would be, how does he win? But as we saw last week, you don't always have to have a logical answer to that, because
exactly.
Would Pogačar and Evenepoel really get fooled 2 weeks in a row? Like, you rewatch Amstel, it's like they're making a lot of mistakes. Like, they're basically shepherding Schelmoser to the finish line. Like, here, sprint from third wheel. Like, is it realistically they do that to you 2 weeks in a row? Probably not. But Kevin Vauquelin, on the 200K question, he did win a tour stage last year, 200 kilometers long in the break for 195 kilometers of them. So that's not a nothing effort. This would be like, you remember when Bobby Jungels won this race? What was that, like 2017?
Did he win a Tour de France stage, Vauquelin? I think you say a Giro stage, no?
No, tour stage.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm mistaken because it was in Italy.
Yes, it was. It was in Bologna.
That's why.
It was in Italy. It's like famous in the Giro. Yeah.
Yeah. I was mistaken because it was in Italy. Yeah. But listen, I mean, we haven't seen the last of Kevin Vauquelin, that I can tell you. So, anyways, it's these long tour stages or Vuelta stage or Giro stages and classics. It's not the same. But if he can't do it now, he will definitely be able to do it at some point in his career. I have no doubt about that.
It's something that is interesting. I'm just flagging it for interest. Santiago Buitrago, who was third here 2 years ago, 2023, plus 8,000 for the win. Is he going to win? Probably not, but he's plus 1,100 for the podium. Not a bad, if you can find a place to put that bet in, it's not a bad bet for the podium.
No, that's a good one. He probably won't be there with when the big fireworks are going on, but the guys, he keeps going. He keeps going. He never loses a lot of time. He comes back in little groups, and then ultimately, I could perfectly see a scenario where it's Pogačar, Evenepoel 30-40 seconds behind, and then a little group. Buitrago has come back to that group and then surprises everybody at the end. That's a possibility. So I would go for the plus 1,100 for the podium, not for the win, though.
I mean, he's kind of secretly having an incredible 2 years. He never really gets talked about, but the guy is a good bike racer, only 25 years old too. So the last one we'll do, my favorite one, winning margin between winner and second place. So less than a second, meaning it's a group, plus 175, 1 second or more, meaning solo win, minus 250. So the odds are very, very tilted towards a solo winner.
Yeah. We have seen most of the big races in the last 2 years have been won solo. I think Amstel was probably one of the only ones. It tends to be a little sprint. When Pidcock won, it was also a little sprint the year before. But, the big monuments, it's usually one guy. I think the last time was actually when Pogačar won, no? Was a sprint. That's the last time that there was a little group.
Yeah, it was 2021 was the last group.
Okay.
At this race.
Yeah. No, one guy. I think it's yeah.
I'm even looking at the historical data. It's pretty shocking. So in the last 10, so between 2014 and 2017, all those were sprints. And then since then, there's only been 2 sprints in the last 7 editions. So it's clearly trending towards solo rider. I probably would go 1 second or more. I think that's a smart pick.
Yeah.
And these guys, like, there's such, maybe the only way this doesn't happen is Evenepoel. Pogačar can't drop Evenepoel, but these guys, it's like the rivalry is almost so big between them that they'll go above and beyond just to drop each other. It's like they don't want to take each other to the finish line, like we saw Evenepoel trying to drop.
The thing is also, one of the things we should consider between Pogačar and Evenepoel is that Pogačar doesn't necessarily need to drop Remco. I think 8 times out of 10 he's faster, but Remco has an incredible new confidence now in his finishing speed. So he also said, okay, I'll after 250K, I will win in a sprint against Tadej. So, maybe they stay together. Who knows?
That is an interesting thing to think about because, Remco wins 1 sprint. Now he's taken everything to a sprint. It's like but he does have a lot of confidence in that sprint. He could be happy with it, but even, I don't know. Even if that happens, is there someone there like Ben Healy who's like, well, I don't want this to go to a sprint, and then attacks and it breaks that whole truce? Because if those guys are together and they're not going to be pulling through full speed, someone will come back to them probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Well,
Johan, then still Ben Healy still can't beat any of those 2 guys in the sprint. There would have to be like a hesitation between both, and Ben Healy sneaks away. Which, with 3 riders, it's very unlikely to happen that one of those 3 sneaks away in the last kilometer, and the other 2 are just sitting there watching each other. That's not going to happen.
That probably won't happen, especially with Remco. He's not going to just sit there and watch someone ride away with the win. Well, I don't know. Now you're having me. Now I'm questioning this. I wonder if the 175 is the way to go. The plus 175 versus the minus 250 on that. I'm going to go the other one. You go minus 250. I'm picking 175. Okay. It's a sprint for the first time since 2021. Mm-hmm. But do you have anything else to share before we wrap up?
No, that's it, Spencer.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Johan. And the race is on Sunday. I don't know if I said that. Sunday's Liège-Bastogne-Liège on Peacock in the U.S. if you're a U.S.-based listener.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And you'll have a show on Sunday, The Move, that comes out right after the race. Yeah. With Lance Armstrong at like 4 a.m. in Hawaii. I'm curious to see how that goes. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Johan.
Okay. Thanks, Spencer.
Bye.